Hello everyone, a very warm good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to Raja IAS study group. So as you all know, we have started this new initiative and it's been an amazing journey. Today we are going to start with your class 12th of social issues, and today we will be discussing two very sensitive and two very important topics from your exam point of view, right? So we are going to start with your transgender issues. It has been in news for a couple of reasons. We'll discuss that, why it has been in news. And your second topic for today is going to be marital rape, right? So we are going to discuss about that as well. Okay, so first of all, let's see why this was in news. This was in news because despite legislation, there came a bill in 2019. Sorry about that. There came a bill in 2019 about transgenders right protection bill, and despite that, despite the protection that they have been provided, transgender community in India still faces on a lot of issues. So this is the reason why we are going to discuss everything about it today holistically in detail, right? So first of all, let's discuss the official definition given by WHO, what and who transgenders are. So as per WHO, your transgenders, it is an umbrella term for what? For people whose gender identity and expression does not conform to norms and expectations traditionally associated with them at birth. So I'll just simplify it. English mein it's a bit complicated definition because you have to take in account a lot of people and a lot of backlash. Basically what WHO here means to say it, when a person is born, they are either assigned identity of female or a male person based on their biology, right? But certain people who do not assign to those terms or genders assigned to them, they come under the category of transgenders, right? What are the various sections that have developed under transgenders? We are going to discuss that in detail. Now, transsexuals are the people who desire the alteration in their medical procedure in order to transform their body from one sex to another. For example, if someone is a female and wishes to be male, they undergo surgeries, right? They undergo hormonal changes, proper medical treatment is given, and those particular people are termed as transsexuals who change their sexuality altogether, right? And in India, transgenders, see, transgenders is a very evolved term which has come from West. But in India, this third gender has always prevailed, and they have been known by various names called Hijras, Kothis, Aravanis, then Jogpas and Shiv Shaktis. And there was this case of Nalsa versus Supreme Court in Supreme Court of India, Union of India, sorry. There was this case in 2013 of Nalsa versus Union of India, where Supreme Court actually gave legal status to transgenders as third gender. And your transgenders were provided with legal voting rights. Legal voting rights in 1994, there was an amendment in the rule, because earlier जो आपका voting का law था, it only pertained to males and females. There was no section for the third gender. But it was amended in 1994 particularly for the transgenders. But because the definition of transgenders was not clear, it was in loop, so the whole law became stuck at that one point of view, because no one knew where the boundaries, where the lines were to be drawn. So in 2019, when this transgender rights protection bill came, a lot of things cleared out, right? Now let's discuss what are the constitutional safeguards that have been provided to your transgender people. So transgender, it provides, constitution, it provides basic fundamental rights of equality, tolerance, and particularly prevents them from discrimination on the basis of sex, caste, creed, or religion, right? But the transgender community, it still undergoes a lot of humiliation. It still is ostracized on a lot of on a very big level, right? On many levels, and a lot of issues, they still are unaddressed when it comes to your transgender community. Under if we talk about the articles under which your transgender community has the protection, they are article 14, 15, 19, 21 and 23. I hope you know what these articles are. If not, you can just open your Lakshmikant and just cross refer them, and you'll know why the transgenders are protected under these laws, right? So now let's go ahead, and because we are on the topic of transgenders, let's discuss your LGBTQ community. LGBTQ community has been in limelight because of n number of reasons. It's okay, whoever is late, you can always watch the recorded video, right? Plus we are just about to start the important topic, so please stay focused. Then we are going to discuss about LGBTQ community. See, sexuality in India, it's a very hush-hush topic. It is not talked about that much. But the whole concept of LGBTQ third gender, it has come from the West, right? And people have fought tooth and nail about the rights of these people because they have been suppressed, oppressed for a very long time. Just वैसे तो the sexuality is very hard to define. It is a very fluid notion. If you read enough about the Western thinkers, the sexuality of a person is an experimental fluid thing. It's very hard to put it in just a section of male or female. There are n number of divisions that are there. A couple of them I've mentioned here. Just after the lecture, you'll get this PDF, and there you can see, and if you want, you can Google them up and know what these things are about. But I'll tell you the basic majorly used terms. So your first term is of LGBTQIA+. I'll tell you everything in detail. Your L refers to lesbians. So basically these terms are revolved around how a person initially finds romantic interest or erotic interest in someone else, right? So if women, they are in for another woman, they are termed as lesbians. If men, they are in for another set of men, they are termed as gays. Then there are bisexual people who are attracted towards both men and women. Then you have transgenders or transsexuals. Transsexuals we have already discussed, who do not feel comfortable in their own body. For example, if there was a person who is born with the body of a male, but inside they feel they have been trapped, they really want to be a woman, they undergo surgery and there are hormonal procedures for it. So there is a whole line of medical treatment, but this is possible to turn into a woman. So they are termed as transsexuals. Then comes queer and questioning. I'll just spell it out for you. So it's either known as queer. Queer is basically referred to people who want to cross dress. Cross dress as in, see, the point of discussing all this is you should know what sort of battle people have been fighting and what their issues are. If we talk normally about women issues, it is very hard to understand what women issues are unless women talk about it. The problem is the issues of this community are not addressed because they are so low in number. I'll actually tell you how many number of transgenders are in India, but because their number is so low in India, their voice gets shut down, right? So this refers to queer or questioning. This refers to queer or questioning. Questioning means people who have still not decided upon their sexuality, what they actually feel like. They are still in confusion, still in dilemma. So this particular word Q here is referred for those. I refers for intersex. There are people who are born with the reproductive or sexual organs of both men and women. See, there are some anomalies, but they are born with the body parts of both men and women. So that refers to your intersex. Then A refers to asexual people, asexual or ally. It is interchangeably used for both of them. Asexual refers for people who are not romantically or erotically attracted to anyone. Even they are secluded out of society. And then it comes for allies. Allies, people who are straight, who conform to the binary male or female conformation, but they wholeheartedly support this LGBTQ community, right? So ally is used for those. And then plus refers to other identities. These are the couple of identities that are simpler and that are easily understood by people. So discuss this, but there are n number of multiple identities. A couple of them I've mentioned here. So for them we use plus. Since the number of these people is very low, it is very hard to know what they are going through. So I hope LGBTQIA plus, the terminology, the definition is clear, right? Now let's come to the important topic. Acha, there was in census was conducted in 2011. I have told you n number of times. Census was bound to happen in 2021, but now since we have not got the data, the census has not happened, still the data of 2011 is equally important for us, right? So as per census 2011, the total number of transgenders in India is around 4.9 lakh. So 4.9 lakh people, I'm sure by 2021 the number has increased drastically, right? So just to confirm, from the data of 2011, the total number of people is 4.9 lakh, and we can expect by 2021 this number has at least tripled. So this much demographic dividend, this much people, character, citizens of India, we cannot choose, we cannot bear to neglect, right? Now let's discuss what are the problems of this transgender community. Your first and foremost is discrimination. Discrimination, why? Because they do not conform to the binary gender of male and female. People, they do not understand what transgenders actually are, and hence somehow subconsciously they have a phobia about it. They are desperately disturbed by it, and hence they discriminate these people. They are termed as or made to be a social outcast, right? They go through under severe humiliation, discrimination, and there are long lasting repercussions because of these. Then they face severe identity issues. See, I'm pretty sure you must have known someone in your life. All of you who are here must be graduates or must be in your final year of graduation, right? You must have known someone who is termed of a particular sex, either male or female, but they do not conform to their gender identity, right? They might be a male, but they have extreme characteristics of a female, or they might be a female, but they have an extreme characteristic of male, right? They do not feel comfortable in their body, and because this particular notion is shunned by families per se at a very basic level, they feel confused about what their identity actually is, because they seem to not conform to what people around them in general are feeling. So identity crisis is one of the major issues that they face. Plus in India we do not have it's a very hush-hush topic. It's still considered a stigma, a taboo, right? And we do not have people who talk openly enough about it. We do not have counselings about it. We do not have acceptance in our society. So identity crisis ultimately leads to depression, and if extreme cases go, it also leads to suicide in many cases, and that is the tragedy of our society. Then अगर किसी ने देखा होगा ना, there is this particular community called Hijras. If they find out that some of any of the person belongs to that particular community, or a child is born which might be associated with them, they just come and take the child away. And even parents, they give up the child because they do not feel safe in the manner that they'll be able to bring that child up in a proper manner. So for n number of reasons, either the parents want to give it up, or they are mentally or socially pressurized into it that they have to give the child up. Somehow, for some reason or the other, the children who do not conform to the gender status are forced to leave their parents' home. So this creates a void in their head, right? Also, it impacts ultimately their education, because they do not stay the part of mainstream. They become an isolated, alienated section of the society. Their education gets affected. Also, because in our primary health care, they do not conform to this male or female section. Their problems, their health issues are not understood. So they become the target of health issues. Primary health care, even in major diseases, health care is not given to them. They are unable to find out proper treatment, also because they are shy, also because they seem it as an attack on their privacy. They do not choose to go to regular hospitals. We as a students, we as people who belong to mainstream cannot imagine the dire condition transgenders face on a daily basis. So least we can do is empathize with them, right? Then their access to public spaces and shelters is restricted. Just observe around you. You are walking on a road with your group of friends, and suddenly if any transgenders come across you, you either start staring at them, or you're scared of them, or if there is some nuisance going on in any of your friends' heads, or so for whatever reason they start passing comments on them. See, transgenders, they base a lot of harassment, and because of that persistent, sustained harassment, their access to public spaces and shelter is restricted on a large level, and that leads to their isolation. Their civil status is questioned because they cannot confirm whether they are male or female. In a lot many places, they face issues regarding to marriage and adoption, right? So even if legal paperwork has to be carried out everywhere, they have to find a specific special section for them, and their civil status is questioned. Unemployment, because they are forced to leave their paternal home at a very early age, their education gets hampered. Also, if by some miracle, by some chance, they are able to have a proper education, पहला तो regular education मिलती नहीं है. Fighting with the mainstream becomes very different. You people, most of you are from the regular mainstream strata who have received regular education from schools and colleges. तब आप competition देखो कितना है. These poor people जिनको basic education मिलती नहीं है, somehow ले भी लेते हैं, तो then they have to fight for employment, because एजुकेशन नहीं है तो डिग्री नहीं है, somehow डिग्री है तो यहाँ पे harassment बहुत ज़्यादा है. People who are at the recruitment level, they harass out because they differentiate between your so-called regular binary stereotype and transgenders. So this generates unemployment, and for this very reason, these people fall trap to menial jobs. Menial jobs, for example, dancing, begging, prostitution. Most of them are engaged in sex work. This is the sad reality of life. And for many reasons they are pushed into this sex trafficking and human trafficking. I personally have seen people selling out their blood just to sustain. Transgenders who sell out their blood just to sustain themselves because they cannot find a regular job. And every other work they are treated really in a disrespectful manner, right? Then they are a victim of gender based violence because people sort of have an power over them, they discriminate them. They if you see the hierarchical level of the society, the strata, so there, because they do not have any power, they face violence on a very large and very regular basis. Sorry to say, sad to say, even the police, some people, not all, but a very large section of our forces also humiliate these people. Then on a very large level, they face social problems of acceptance, marriage, adoption, etc., whatever. Even in the regular spheres of life, banking, if you have to go to markets, etc., their issues are a lot their issues are a lot in number and not very much talked about. Then because they are pushed into your prostitution and sex work, they are a major target of your HIV AIDS. And HIV AIDS के बारे में भी, because they cannot talk about it, they do not receive primary health care, ultimately it leads into the multiplication of disease even to the healthy people. So this is something that needs to be checked upon. Government of India is working really hard on it, but till now we have not been able to receive much of the results. Then it impacts their mental health and ultimately they fall to the prey of depression. Then because they cannot decide. See, with some people who are born with multiple sex organs, they have certain body transformations, and to stop them they are advised by people. For example, if you have facial hair, having facial hair is very normal even for women, but in case of transgenders, because other people abuse them, just to stop that growth, facial hair growth, they use this hormone pills on a very large extent, which ultimately destroys their body organs on a very large extent, having side effects on multiple factors, right? So hormonal pill abuse is a very major factor which is unaddressed. Then tobacco and alcohol abuse, this comes hand in hand with your sex trafficking, prostitution and sex trafficking. Then penectomy is they do not have the proper knowledge about it, and this gives rise to a parallel economy of illegal medical line. The protection of transgenders, there came Transgenders Persons Protection of Rights Act in 2019. So there were certain provisions of this act. I'm going to discuss them with you. For the first time, the act gave a proper definition of a transgender. So transgender की basic definition क्या थी? Either you are a male or a female at the time of your birth, and if you do not conform to this identity, then you are a transgender. This was the basic definition that was provided. Then it gave directions against the discrimination of transgenders. There were certain lines of action that they were given, that transgenders will not be discriminated when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to education, etc. So that has been given. Then you cannot discriminate with them in the right when it comes to the right of residence. They have the right to reside in India anywhere possible, anywhere they want to. They have equal rights with, at par rights with all the citizens of India normally. Then you cannot discriminate with them when it comes to employment. If they are talented enough, if they are capable enough, you cannot shun them just because they belong, just because you do not understand their sexual orientation. Then on the basis of education, for their education you cannot discriminate them. Then healthcare, they have to have, they are entitled to get proper healthcare in any hospital of India, whether it's a government hospital, whether it is a cooperative hospital, whether it is a private hospital. They are entitled to have proper healthcare. Then they can go to district magistrate and sign a consent letter, where the district magistrate's office will issue them a certificate of identity, and from there, if any sort of paperwork is stuck, they can get it done, they can get it released easily, right? Then there are welfare measures that were adopted by the government under the same law, and there were penalties imposed. Penalty imposed, why? Because certain people who have been harassing them, discriminating them against them, there were certain penalties proposed and have been in place against certain actions. Then NCT was set up. NCT is your National Council for Transgender Persons. So NCT was set up, and it is a detailed committee. Let's see what comprises of NCT. So your Union Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment is going to be its chairperson. Your Minister of State for Social Justice is going to be its vice chairperson. Then your Secretary of Ministry of Social Justice is going to be its member. The NCT will have one member, one representative each from Ministry of Health, Ministry of Home Affairs and Ministry of Human Resource Development, right? Then there are going to be representatives of Niti Aayog and National Human Rights Commission. Then state governments are also going to be represented, because many state governments have had already actions, plans in place, schemes in place for this particular section of society. Then 5 members from transgenders community and 5 from expert NGOs who have been working in the same line, they will be proposed, right? So this comprises of your NCT, your National Commission for Transgenders, right? Now this bill was passed in 2019, but there have been certain opposition from the transgender community in India regarding this bill. What was the opposition? The first objection was with the definition in itself. The transgender community were not happy that the definition has been restricted to particular terms. As I told you, constricting the identity of transsexuals in a particular 2 or 3 lines or 1 or 2 sections is not possible. It is a whole fluid concept. So they were not happy with being restricted to the third gender itself, right? So this was a major issue. Then certificate of identity, the major issue with this was the privacy issue, that it hampers their privacy. It is an attack on their privacy. Any male person or any female person in Indian society does not have to justify their gender. For them, it became a question of privacy. Also, what if the district magistrate's office discriminates with them? So this came out to be a major issue. Discrimination, as I told you, discrimination laws have been pertaining to certain sections, but discrimination also, it is manifold, that has not been addressed. Then the rehabilitation. See, your law says the child can be rehabilitated, but it does not speak about the extreme amount of pain the child suffers from if the family is abusive in itself. So rehabilitation was of one big question. Then reservations. The reservations that have been provided to them does not justify the problems they have been facing. Then there are certain areas, for example, begging. Transgenders, they do not have any other options to earn their livelihood, but for example, they beg. This pertains to criminalization. So this is a major issue that does not address their basic livelihood. Then punishment to people who have been acting against transgenders, that has been restricted to a very low level. For the constant humiliation they face, if they are not bold enough to come out, the punishment laws are on a very narrow level, and that was an issue. And as I told you, even the police officials, sometimes they bully them, they harass them. So if the protectors, the system itself is standing against this particular section of society, how can you expect them to have a fair chance? So these were the issues with bill. a constant debate has been going on here, and as per Census of India, the maximum number of transgenders in India was 28% in Uttar Pradesh, then it came in Andhra Pradesh, then Maharashtra, then Gujarat, then West Bengal, and so on and so forth. So these were the states with the maximum number of transgenders in India. Now, there have been a couple of state level initiatives that have already been taken about this transgenders. So, Odisha, it released a separate transgender policy in 2017. Then Kerala became the first state to formulate transgender policy in 2015, and then it formed Transgender Justice Board to deal with their complaints, because they should have a certain specific tribunal where they can address, get their complaints sorted out, right? Then Maharashtra became the second state where welfare board was set up first, and there was then a cultural institute set up to cater to their problems. Then Tamil Nadu, it formed a transgender welfare board where welfare schemes were taken into place and their socio-economic problems were addressed, their conditions, the efforts were done to improve their socio-economic conditions, right? Now, we have already discussed what problems transgenders, what problems transgenders face, but there has to be a way forward. How can we actually help them in achieving a better quality of life? So, the foremost is, instead of giving district magistrate's office an authority to identify them, there should be a provision of self-identification. Self-identification for transgenders, that they should be able to define which section or which part of society they want to be a part of, or they are a part of. Then education, a proper emphasis has to be played on their education so that they can compete with the mainstream students and hence obtain proper employment opportunities. Then their employment aspect has to be taken care of, their health care, so that people who are currently even engaged in the work of prostitution or sex work, so-called sex work, so their issues can be addressed. They have to be given legal protection. Strong and stringent measures has to be taken off against people who have been committing crimes against them, and general societal awareness has to be created just to be empathetic, so that we people are empathetic towards them, right? Until and unless we form a good society where there is an inclusive development for everyone, we cannot be able to come up to our full potential, right? So this was about your transgenders topic. I hope this is clear. Now let's move forward to our second topic. Our second topic is about marital rape, another very sensitive issue, and there was an article in Indian Express about it. Very sensitive topic. If you want to read about it, you can read about it. This is not going to be a pretty topic, I'm already going to tell you. So let's discuss why this was in news. Recently there was a 2-judge bench of Delhi High Court. So they delivered a verdict, split verdict. Split verdict का क्या मतलब है? 2-judge bench था, 2 judge थे. So one judge gave the verdict in favor and one judge gave the favor against. So it was a tie. So this means your split verdict. So they gave a split verdict regarding, there was a petition challenging to criminalize your marital rape under IPC, but no conclusive result could be reached. So now we are going to discuss how marital rape has evolved, what sorts of problems have been underlying, and what all hidden topics have still not been discussed, right? So there was this Justice Rajiv Shakdhar. He said the marital rape should be criminalized, whereas your Justice Hari Shankar, he said no, there is no place in Indian society to criminalize your section 375, which deals with the rape, right? Section 375 of IPC, Indian Penal Code. Now let's see what is the basic definition of rape. So rape is basically forcing or manipulating someone to have an unwanted sexual intercourse with you, and this ultimately forms a huge part of your intimate partner violence. The lines are very blurry here, so a very open mind has to be put on with it, and India does not recognize marital rape as an offense. All over the world, around about 100 countries, they recognize marital rape as criminal offense, as actual rape, including Nepal and Thailand. So our neighboring countries, they do recognize it as a crime, but India, along with 36 other countries that comes in the line of Pakistan and Sri Lanka, still is stuck in your British colonial era. So that is something that has to be discussed about. Now there are a couple of divisions that are formed inside your rape section. So there are types of rape. Your first is battering rape. Battering rape involves your both physical violence and sexual violence. You beat up and then you rape the person. Your force only rape refers to the type of sexual exchange where you hold the power over another person. So there is manipulation involved and there is force of power in play. For example, raping someone at office to give them because you hold something over them, right? Because they are subordinate to you and they cannot speak about it, and in return, if you're giving them favors, in your head you're giving them favors, but it is their plight. So that comes under your force only rape. Then comes the section of sadistic rape. Sadistic rape is somewhere where you torture another person, and it involves the act of extremely perverse sexual acts, which is hideous. And there is diminished capacity rape. This particularly refers to when you dose the person. There is your drug addiction involved. You malfunction their food or drink or something, and they are in an unconscious state and unable to protect themselves. Many of the times they do not even realize that they have been raped. They have no notion of it. So this falls under your diminished capacity rape. Now let's see from where this concept of marital rape has come. So as you all know, whatever laws we have today, we have inherited them from our British colonial era. Your IPC was framed in 1960 and it was brought in India. Your IPC was regulated, implemented in India in 1860. It was started. The process of forming it was started in 1947 by Lord Macaulay in your first law commission. He formed your first law commission, and the basis of it lies in your Victorian era, where women's identity was merged or intertwined with the identity of a man. Women did not even have a separate legal entity. Women were not recognized as a separate legal entity. They did not have your voting rights, right? So from there we have inherited our laws, and it's a sad story that still we are living under that shadow. So earlier, the law which talked about marital rape, it pertained to section 375 of IPC, where the marital rape was a crime only if the woman was a child. Child was earlier, the age was fixed to 10 years, and in 1940 this was raised to 15 years. 15 years, why so? Because at this point of time, child marriage, a lot of people still got married at a very early age. So बाल विवाह की वजह से it was still stuck at 15 years, right? This whole concept of obeying your husband, women's identity being same as her husband's identity, or this concept of implied consent, it comes from your doctrine of Hale. Doctrine of Hale is basically a legacy of Justice Matthew Hale, who was a British Chief Justice, and he gave this theory in 1736. For him, once you're married, at the time of marriage, women has consented to have sex with the said husband for life. So there were no distinctions of being a choice about it. So doctrine of Hale is what rules our Indian law even at this time, and only punishable instances even then were if the child was minor or she was living in a separated manner from her husband under some judicial orders. So these were the only two cases where marital rape was exempted. Now, what is the present status? So section 375 of IPC, it defines rape and it gives only 7 notions of consent. Their crucial exemption is marital rape does not have any place. So if a man who is married to a woman has forcibly sex with her, so that does not count to marital rape, because even there was a case of Union of India, Thought versus Union of India in 2017, where Government of India gave the stand that marital rape does not belong to Indian society because it is alien to Indian society. Still, this concept has evolved from the West and we cannot apply this to India because it will destroy the institution of marriage in India itself, right? Because the institution of marriage in India is not same as that of West. In India, marriage is a bond that is considered to be sacred, sacrosanct and cannot be given away with. हमारे यहाँ शादी 7 जन्म के लिए होती है, 4 साल के लिए नहीं. So that is one of the major reasons that this question has come into play. And only recourse against non-consensual sex is Protection of Women from Violence Act of Domestic Violence Act, right? And section 498 of IPC on a cruelty against wife by husband or a family member. ये दो sections हैं, but the problem is this act is a civil act and rape is a criminal act. So law का overlapping इतना है that even for the lawmakers, even for the judges and the jury, it is very difficult to decide what falls in what category because the law is not really clear about it. Now let's discuss the various sections that have been in news regarding this particular topic. So section 376 here is your rape. Section 377 is your carnal intercourse against the order of nature. Section 377 has also been in light because of same-sex marriage of LGBTQ community. Someday when there is a news about this, we are going to discuss this as well as in detail. Section 377 of IPC. And then there is section 498 where there is a cruelty by husband or relatives against the woman. So even that is a criminal offense. Apart from these, everything falls into the, either does not fall into the category of any sort of obstruction to justice at all, or it just comes under the purview of civil law. So this is one of the basic problems. Now there have been a couple of landmark judgments that I'll show you. If you know about them, well and good. If you don't, you can please read about them so that you can quote them in your answers while you're writing your mains exams. So there was State of Karnataka versus Krishnappa. Then there was Sucheta Srivastava versus Chandigarh administration. Then one of the pivotal landmark decision was Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India. Then independent thought versus Union of India, where Government of India gave this stand that we cannot criminalize marital rape because it will destroy the institution of marriage. So BJP government had the stand. Then there was Chairman of Railway Board versus Chandrika Das. Then there was Bodhisattva Gautam versus Shubhra Chakravarti, and there was Nimesh Bhai Bharat Bhai Desai versus State of Gujarat in 2017. So these have been important landmark judgments regarding marital rape, but अभी तक कोई conclusion आया नहीं है. Still we are here on the split decision. Let's see आगे how it evolves. Now let's talk about a couple of reports. So as per UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund, around 75% of women in India, they are a victim of your sexual violence and marital rapes. So that is a very triggering data figure in itself. Then your National Crime Records Bureau, it released a report in 2019 named Crime in India, which says about 70% of women in India are victims of domestic violence. See, domestic violence is something which includes both your physical abuse and sexual abuse. As I said, the lines are very blurry, so it's very hard to decide what falls in what category, and maybe this is the reason because that we do not have a proper law against it. Now in 2013, UN CEDAW, CEDAW, we have discussed this earlier as well. CEDAW refers to a UN Committee on Elimination and Discrimination Against Women. इसका related हमारे पास Sustainable Development Goal भी है related to women. I hope you have that whole chart of Sustainable Development Goal imprinted in your mind and at least on your desk. So they actually recommended that Indian government should give away and should criminalize your marital rape. And then after this Delhi gang rape, the Nirbhaya gang rape, the atrocity that happened, there came Justice Verma committee in 2013, and even that committee gave its recommendation that this particular heinous crime should be criminalized, but still there has been no action on it. Now, National Family Health Survey data was released in 2015-16, and it shows around 99.1% of sexual violence cases, they go unreported, and that average Indian woman is 17 times more likely to face sexual violence from husband than from others. मतलब बाहर से नहीं, घर में ही आपका टॉर्चर हो रहा है, घर में ही आपके साथ हीनियस क्राइम हो रहा है. And since it's not a legal crime, it's not listed as a crime, NCRB does not actually collect data on it, does not maintain a separate statistic on marital rape. And National Family Health Survey recently, the 5th round of National Family Health Survey, it indicated that around 24%, sorry about this, around 24% of Indian women report facing either domestic or sexual violence. So women in India, they actually do not know what their rights are because they have been so much burdened under patriarchy that even if they have the knowledge of it, because there is no particular law pertaining to it, they cannot report about it. So that has become, see, for example, you consider dowry. जो दहेज प्रथा है उसको क्रिमिनलाइज कितना पहले कर दिया गया था. देयर आर लॉज अगेंस्ट इट, बट स्टिल इफ यू सी इट स्टिल परसिस्ट्स इन अ सोसाइटी, नॉट दैट एक्सप्लिसिटली बट इट इज स्टिल अ क्राइम. सी इफ यू अगर किसी चीज को आपने क्राइम लिस्ट कर दिया है, स्टिल इट इज पर्टेनिंग इन योर सोसाइटी फॉर सच अ लॉन्ग टाइम. व्हाट, जस्ट थिंक व्हाट अबाउट द लॉज, व्हाट अबाउट द क्राइम्स जिनके अगेंस्ट लॉ नहीं है. सो if there is no authority where they can be reported to, how can you expect women to have a solution about it? And I'm continuously telling you, women issues have been in limelight for a very long time. Exam may please expect at least 2 to 3 questions related to women issues, and this is one of the most important topics of the year. Not just this year, but consecutive years mein this topic is going to remain one of the central topics. So there was a recent survey, recent research was carried out which confirms the high amount of sexual violence in India. So if we compare this data, these are the figures that have been reported to National Family Health Survey, right? Husband के द्वारा reported cases were around 6,590 and sexual violence acts by others, they were 157. And if you calculate them in percentage and इनका data collect करो तो they are 37.2% and 9.1%. and ratio अगर देखते हैं तो cases proportion of cases that have been reported at 0.6% and 5.8%. So you can realize how much of a stigma it is, how much of a taboo it still is in India, right? And there was a particular research methodology applied to it, but and that gave away that National Family Health Survey pointed out 0.6% of the women, they have faced sexual violence in India in their homes at some level or the other, and this has come up as a huge wake up call for people in India in general, right? Now there are a couple of constitutional and legal terms that we should cater to. So there is this doctrine of coverture, which basically merges your woman's identity with that of her husband. As I already told you, all this इसका root जो है आपका Victorian era legacy में जाता है, right? So this is what basically defines our law regarding this whole marital rape thingy. Then it is violative of your Article 14 and 21. I hope your Articles 14 and 21 are, you know what they are. If don't, please re-verify them. Then it defeats the spirit of your Section 375 of IPC itself. Then it is actually a violation of your right to privacy, and this includes your right to sexual privacy, and also this questions your right to bodily self-determination, which also confronts your reproductive rights. Reproductive rights and body rights. So ये वाली चीजें भी आपकी क्वेश्चन में आ जाती हैं. Now there are certain arguments that have been given against why we cannot or why we should not criminalize your marital rape. Your first one is burden of proof. Burden of proof का क्या मतलब है? Crimes where you do not have eyewitnesses. So it's very hard to prove that whether the sex a person had was consensual, because it is between man and wife. So it is very hard to prove whether it was consensual or whether it was a forced thing. So burden of proof is very hard to give where there is no eyewitness, but the same logic also applies to the cases of POSCO, crime against children. So ये वाला argument तो यही invalidate हो जाता है. Then it goes against your right to privacy. Then it will destabilize the marriage as an institution altogether. ये तो Government of India बोल रही है और बोला इन्होंने 2017 में. Then there can be potential misuse of law. See, if people have any or some sort of troubles with their marriage, women or men both, they can use it, misuse it just to get out of the marriage or just to have a personalized vendetta. So this is a possibility of a probable misuse of law. This has come out as a major reason. Then Law Commission has not recommended this. In 2000, the report came out, Law Commission report came out where this was discussed extensively, and Law Commission negated the possibility of declaring this as a crime. So this has been a major argument. Then because Indian society, police wale bhi to they are a part of Indian society, even in Indian society, marriage is a sacred, sacrosanct bond. So there are going to be implementation issues, even from the side of your legal department, police, judiciary, etc., etc. There are going to be implementation issues even if the law is passed. This is the argument that has been given. Then India comprises of diverse religions, diverse sort of cultures, so one size fits all approach law banana बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा. This has been one of the major arguments, and it has been argued that criminal उसको declare करने से better है कि you create awareness in amongst men and women about it, and so on and so forth. So these are the arguments that have been given. Now these are the arguments that have been given why your marital rape should be a crime. So there are shortcomings in existing laws. As I told you, there has been an overlap with the civil and criminal laws. Then fundamental rights of women, they are questioned, and it ultimately leads to a threat of her life, threat to her life. It goes against international norms. As I already told you, UNCEDAW told India in 2013 that India should criminalize your marital rape. Then there are concerns of implied consent. What does implied consent actually mean? ये concept India में exist करता भी है नहीं. So there are issues revolving around this. Then there is a patriarchal outlook of laws. So everything is defined by patriarchy in India. We cannot negate it. Considering the Khap Panchayats, Bangaru Panchayats we have in India in various names, but the same stuff has been going on all over India. So patriarchal laws and outlook, that comes into play. Then this law basically differentiates between married and unmarried women. See, if a woman is unmarried and she's raped, sadly if she is raped, let's consider the hypothesis. So if she is raped, it is considered as a crime, but a married woman is raped by her husband, it is not considered as a crime. So it creates a difference between married and unmarried women. Then the whole thing has a colonial hangover. We are still stuck in 1847. So वहाँ से बाहर आने की बहुत ज़रूरत है. We are living in 2022 and we are still stuck in 1847. दुनिया चांद पे पहुँच गई है, हम मार्स पे पहुँच गए हैं, but 1847 से बाहर नहीं आ पा रहे हैं. तब जब many of the other countries, even Britain itself, it has come out of its so-called historical laws. So this is the need of the hour. Then this is violative of your UN convention. India has always followed, at least tried following UN norms. So it is violative of UN convention, and violative of UN convention on the lines of something which works upon the welfare of its citizens, right? And it does not pass the test of intelligible differentia. Intelligible differentia का क्या मतलब है? Your decision making. So decision making whether what is right or wrong, ये इस चीज को पास नहीं कर पा रहा है. So these are the arguments that have been given. So pros and cons आपको दोनों लिख लेना एग्जाम में. And to form an opinion, you have both the sides of the coin. It's for you to decide what should be done and what you want to write in your exam. Now legislature tone, the legislature, it has been deaf to the women. So in 2013 came your Justice Verma committee recommendation. In 2015 came Pam Rajput committee recommendation, and still no action has been taken. And if women of a particular country, they suffer through this much of pain, this much of problem, how can you expect them to contribute to the workforce of the country and actually benefit the country as a whole? So this has economic cost of all this is too high to consider. So this has been a major pointing in this whole topic. Now let's see the global status where the world stands. So marital rape has been already declared a crime in these countries. Respective years have been mentioned. So in Australia in 1981, Canada 1983, South Africa 1993, right? In 2003 marital rape was outlawed even in UK, and in more than 150 countries they had criminalized marital rape by 2019, but India अभी भी वहीं अटका हुआ है. So bottom line हमारी ये है, because our whole concern is about India for now. Now what lies ahead? See, verdict split hai, lekin there is still hope because at least one judge has said something about in its favor, and the whole case has actually gone to the purview of Supreme Court. And Supreme Court of India, Honorable Supreme Court of India, they have some supreme power under Article 142. Under Article 142, what Supreme Court of India can do is they can ask the parliament to design a legislature on it, and if the parliament fails to do so, the Supreme Court of India can strike down exception to section 375, and अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट डिस्क्रिशनरी पावर ले लेता है इसके ऊपर, then it will be declared as a criminal offense. So there is still hope, and no matter what, किसी चीज को क्राइम डिक्लेयर करने से वो चीज खत्म नहीं हो जाती. योर बर्निंग एग्जाम्पल इज ऑफ डाउरी. ठीक है, so societal change is pivotal. We have to talk about women issues, sustaining patriarchy and the whole conundrum of problems that come with it, and public consultation and discussion with certain stakeholders, especially Women Commission, is important in this whole issue. And let's hope that soon we reach a proper we have a proper solution to all this, right? So we've discussed two very important topics this afternoon. I hope you guys do not have any doubts related to it. If you do, you can mention them in comments. I'll try taking them up in my next class. And in my previous class, someone asked me कि इसका PDF कहाँ मिलेगा? So you can find the PDF of the same just after the lecture in our Telegram group, right? And Telegram group का link आपको नीचे description में मिल जाएगा. So exam is just around the corner. I hope you guys are preparing well. Stay tuned and keep learning, keep watching. Thank you so much, and we'll meet again on next Friday. Bye bye.